That's a lot to live up to, don't you think? I mean, that was just awesome, Charlie. I don't know. We'll see. When you build somebody up like that and then you go, I don't know what she said, it's kind of disappointing. So hopefully you won't be too disappointed. But the energy that you saw in Sue and Charlie, and hopefully you'll feel from me in these next few minutes, is so real, because this past month we are just totally jazzed. Yesterday, the ministers and the board and the search team met with one of our candidates, one of our final candidates, and we were riding higher than a kite when we left. It was so wonderful. And then we had another candidate about 3 weeks ago. We are bringing you two candidates, totally different, but totally grounded, and you get to choose, the members get to choose on August 11th, which one you would like to have as their senior pastor. We started this back in December, and here it is July, and so it's been a long road, and it's been a great one, and we're just jazzed about this. We're very excited. So right now today, I want to talk about expanding you, because we think about expanding our teaching here, expanding our curriculum that Sue talked about. I guess I am a spreadsheet junkie, but it's fun. But when we talk about expansion, there's a question I have for you. Did any time in your life you think that there's only so much abundance to go around? And if you did, the answer is no. And in another time of your life, did you think, well, if I have more, somebody else is going to have less? The answer is no. Because we live in a world of infinite intelligence. We live in a world with so much going on. The universe is full of stars. The beaches are full of grains of sand. There are more leaves on trees than I could ever count. There's so much abundance going on, but for some reason we forget how abundant the universe is. One of the things that we forget is that there's a law out there, a law of abundance, and it really starts with God, Big Sweetie, infinite intelligence, dear one, whatever you want to call this creator that created all things. It started there. And it's God's desire to experience itself that has created all this. If you had all of everything in the world and you thought, well, you'd be kind of bored by yourself, and I'm sure God's not bored, but creating all of this abundance and creating every person in the world who's unique in and of themselves, it's kind of mind-boggling. The world is so abundant. But somehow we get caught and we think, well, if I have more, somebody's going to have less. And we forget the truth, that there is more abundance being created every day, and it will be throughout eternity. There are laws behind this, and we'll learn more about that as we go on, and we learn about this in class. But for instance, the law of gravity. I was thinking of, okay, we stand on a big building, let's say 10-story building, and we have a bunch of bowling balls. Haven't bowled for a while, but they're pretty heavy, and we start dropping them, and we think, well, I'm going to drop so many that the law of gravity is going to stop, and we better watch out because it's going to come back, or it's going to go this way, or who knows which way this bowling ball is going to fly. But the law is a law. It means it's infinite. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop just because we use it. And science has found this. Scientists work with laws all the time. You add two colors together, you get another color. For us, our mind is so powerful. When we focus on something intently and believe it deeply, we attract that like energy to us. It's a law, cause, effect. So these laws are in process all the time, but when it comes to abundance, sometimes we kind of forget that one. And I'm here to tell you that it's important for you to always move forward in abundance, and it's important to you to expand your abundance. Because if you don't, you're stopping the process. You're sitting on what God gave you, basically. Sometimes I think about when I was growing up, a lot of parents of my generation didn't have a lot, but they did the best they could. And I cannot believe how ignorant I was as a child that I guess I didn't have anything to balance it against, how hard it was for my mother to raise us two children. But in the summer, we got to get chocolate milk from the milkman and a little Danish, it was probably a Twinkie, from the bread man, because they all came around, during the week. And my mother told us years later how hard it was for her to pay for that, but that was our abundance. And it was only in the summer because we never did anything else. But we thought we lived in heaven. I mean, we were in heaven because of chocolate milk and Twinkies. And so when we have that picture of that's abundance in our life, then we get older and we still are carrying around that box. So we become teenagers and then we end up having to go out on our own, and we carry with us that box of what abundance means. And so we may rent the cheapest apartment because that's all we think we deserve. Or, it impacts all areas of our lives. Because I know whenever we asked my mom for more, we would hear about the starving children in China. Did you? Anybody hear starving children? Oh boy, you just went too far. You asked for too much. So this is the abundance we carry around with us. So that abundant quotient or box becomes our dogma. Like the Catholics have their dogma, the Jews have their dogma. There's dogma all around if you work for corporate America, but that's our dogma, that box. And so I love Google, and I was Googling all this stuff this week, and I came across this one thing, and it says, if you're feeling lack in any area, it's time to take your dogma for a walk. I just love that. Take my dogma for a walk, the little box of what I see as abundance. What most of us do is we put our dreams away in a closet. We're not abundant for our dreams. We don't see that level of abundance in our life. So we kind of put them in the closet and they gather dust over time. Well, if you've had your dreams in a closet, I personally will write you a doctor's permission slip to take them out because the dust is so heavy now, it's hazardous to your health. It's time to take them out of the closet. Because unless you inject them with energy, they're just going to lay there. And you won't get that feeling, that joy, that happiness that you think will come with that. And if you're like my grandma in New York City in Harlem, she had three deadbolts on her door. Nobody was going to get into her box, her apartment. And sometimes we do that. We have our dreams in a box and we put deadbolts on that. Well, you can get out of jail free with permission from God. You can get out of that jail free and reignite those dreams. Reignite them. Years ago, I was in a class and we were asked to write a whole essay on our perfect day. Our perfect day. It had to be several pages long. And it couldn't be a fake day like riding a unicorn over the moon or anything. It had to be real. So it had to have smells and colors and places and maybe people and maybe sex, maybe laughter. It had to have all the aspects of what a perfect day would be like. When I got my paper back, the teacher wrote, "Can I have your day?" It was really juicy. It was really good. And 5 years later, I found that paper and I reread it and I went, I've had that day. I actually had that day. Now, it requires that we become a little flexible, because in that day, I lived on the ocean, but I was now living on a lake. But I had my soulmate, I had my piano, I had friends, I had time to write, I had walks along the lake, not on the beach, but on the lake, but the feelings were all there. And so I encourage you this week to write about your perfect day. I mean, just go for it. And then put it in mind, put intention behind it, and give it to God, the one who creates an infinite array of options. The feeling behind it is the key. It's those feelings that are like magnets, that's like energy that attracts like to us. When I first came to the center and they said, if you really want something really badly, you really need to put it in mind. So I was divorced, and many of you heard this, but I wanted a tall, dark-haired guy who had a boat. And boy, 3 days later, I'm introduced to this tall, dark-haired guy that had a boat, and found out after a couple dates that he was a compulsive gambler. And I thought, I didn't put that in the equation, did I? And so I started to learn how to put honesty in the equation, a good sexual partner in the equation, somebody with humor, someone who had compassion, someone who had a sense of adventure. And eventually that person walked into my life in this sanctuary. So if you think you're looking for love, it's here. You just haven't felt it deeply enough to let that come to you. It works so beautifully. So thinking today creates our tomorrows, just like planting seeds creates the trees of tomorrow. What we're planting today is our tomorrows. And so dust off those dreams. Give them some energy, feed them, nourish them. It's called the law of circulation. And it states, even when I Googled it, it states that things in the universe are always flowing in circulation and at an ever-expanding rate. Science has proven the universe is expanding. It's been expanding ever since the Big Bang. And so if we're stuck, if we're feeling stagnant, we're not going with the flow. Like a woodworker would say, go with the grain, you'll get the best finish. Don't go against the grain. So if we're feeling stagnant, we are going against the grain. We're stopping that flow of energy in our life. But that's the juice of life, what we put into it. Years ago, I worked in the pulp and paper industry up in Puget Sound, if you know Port Townsend, Port Angeles, that area up there, and I worked for 2 pulp mills. And I was thinking of this because I bought all the wood for those mills. And so I had over 150 suppliers from Vancouver, Canada, down to Portland, and it was a marketplace that was extremely competitive. Everything you wanted, you had to negotiate, whether it was a barge, a truck, a railroad car full of wood, whether it was Doug fir or sawdust. And so how do you determine a price for that stuff? Well, you have to know the marketplace. You have to know who has a large supply, who has a low supply, who's changing species. You have to know how many logs are being cut, where they're being shipped. You had to know what the Chinese were doing. You had to know what the Japanese were doing. You had to know all this equation in order to determine what price you should pay for some of this wood. And so when I look back on it, I'm really glad I'm not doing that anymore. It was like holding the world on your shoulders. And my intention, my mind, was I'm going to be successful. Look out, I'm going to be successful. So every day, I call it turning over stones. I would just get on the phone with people. And, you know, if my phone didn't ring in 15 minutes, I'd start calling people. I mean, you got to know what's happening because there's a lot happening in that whole part of the country. And so what happened is I got really comfortable with it. And I was really successful, and it worked out really well. But when you put that ball of that world down, and you come here and do something like be a co-pastor for a while, I just got dizzy yesterday thinking about what I used to do. I mean, how does one do that? With intention, realizing that I have to ramp up my energy. I have to put my energy out there. I have to make things happen, turn over stones, make things happen. So if my dream was just, oh, it'll come, it'll just show up, it would have been a disaster. So that's what the energy is all about in the universe. It was interesting just thinking about that. So I Googled the law of circulation, and what pops up is a lot of advice. Now here at the center, we don't give a lot of advice because we give information and you give your own advice. You decide what's good for you. You decide what will work for you. But here's some advice on the internet, and that is describe the life you'd like to live. Yeah, it's our perfect day. Describe the life you'd like to live. What are the traits and qualities that would get you there, that would make it easier, that would kickstart the dreams to come true? And then it's important to give more of yourself than a normal person would. And I thought that was interesting because you usually don't see that on something that's not spiritual. Give more of yourself. Because if you're only giving a minimal amount, that's what's going to return, a minimal amount. But you've got a dream in a closet, Red. You want to bring that out, and you want to really infuse that with energy, and that means giving more to that energy. And that means when we say time, talent, treasure here, that's what being a member means. It's not just to get more money. It's not just to get more of this or that. It's to amp up your life, to juice it up so that the circulation is going, so that it's really flowing in all areas. And it's all based on a law of circulation, which is what our mind is focused on is like the magnet that attracts it. So if our magnet is a dusty old box of dreams in the closet, I wouldn't want to focus on that. I wouldn't want to hang on to that. I wouldn't want that to be my future or my present. So the universe had this desire, universe, God, Big Sweetie, had this desire for self-expression through you, every one of you. That's why you're all different, every one of you. He's counting on it. It's not a he, could be a she, could be an it, could be a thing, I don't know. But this energy is counting on you to express life in a bigger way, which is why we offer all these classes. When we do that, when we are in this flow of energy, infinite intelligence responds. And here are 4 words Dr. Holmes says about this. The intelligence responds to us directly, specifically, concretely, and personally. We talk about laws, but this is the love of God. This is the love aspect of God that responds to us. For me personally, it often comes as words. I hear somebody talking to me. It's like, where are you coming from? But it's always true. And I'm always hearing what I need to hear at the moment when I ask. Can't figure this one out, God, need some help here. And I just listen and I hear it. I hear the words clearly. So when he says concretely and specifically, I've personally recognized that. I've had that experience. And if you haven't, it's time to listen more. It's time to open up and just listen to the sound of God in your life. It's very, very powerful. We have practitioners here at the center, and for those of you that are new today, a practitioner is someone who's taken first year, second year, third year, a practicum, an oral exam, a written exam, done 3 validated healings with people, and we send that all into the head office, and then they decide if you're worthy of a practitioner license to do spiritual mind treatment, which is affirmative prayer, which is prayer that will change an aspect of your life. It's very powerful. But anyone who's in this teaching can be a practitioner. You can be your own practitioner. You can do that by using the power of your mind, using affirmative prayer for your own daily exercise, and you will be in awe how that works. We have a little booklet that's called Creative Thought Magazine. It has a prayer for every day, but it's written in a format that Ernest Holmes found was the most effective format to get results from your prayer. And it's kind of interesting because until you take classes, you can read some of those and go, this is kind of odd how this is written, but we're communicating with God in a now moment, at a now moment level. So classes help you learn the art, the science, the skill of how to do your own affirmative prayers, which is why we promote classes so much, because you have the capacity, you just may not have the skill at the moment. So there's many opportunities here at our center to improve your skills for your own life, not anything that we think you should be doing, but for those dreams that you have that you want to experience in life. We have 18 Seva teams. Seva is a Sanskrit word for selfless service to God. When someone comes in from the cleaning team and runs the vacuum, they do it with a chant like what Phoebe was offering, a chant to God. They do it with a love for God. They're not doing it because it's boring. They're doing it because they feel the Spirit of God in them while they do that. So we have 18 teams, cleaning, landscape, office, on and on and on. And the interesting thing is we invite you to participate. Just walk in the social hall after service and say, hey, how can I help today? Not only would you meet new friends, but you would lift yourself up by doing a little more than what you've been doing. And that juice, that energy will show up in those dreams that you have. That's circulation. I want to share just a moment a wonderful, I don't know how you call it, experience, but one of our congregants lost their cat this past week, a dearly beloved cat. And I talked to them, and this cat was so special. His name was John Bauer. Anybody watch 24? Oh, what? Jack Bauer, John Bauer. Jack Bauer. Of course, everybody knows Jack Bauer. And I said to Elizabeth, what's the thing that he used to do that made you like him so much? And she said, he'd come up to the back of my head and lick me. And then he'd lay at my feet in the bed. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful cat. And the memories she's going to have of that cat are going to last forever. And it was one soul with another. The soul of a cat is no different from us. It's just at a lower level of awareness and energy. But being a cat sounds like a lot more fun than working at a pulp mill in Washington. You know, really, it'd be a lot easier. Yeah, I just realized that. It's so funny what we do. So anyway, I honor Jack Bauer and Elizabeth and her love for that kitty. Very sweet. We have a program we call Shoes for Souls, and it's donating shoes, and we take them to the homeless down in Caldwell Park. And there's one way to give something to the homeless, and it's like, here you are. Here you are. And then we come along. And some of us are doing shoes, and some of us have cooked food, and we've got all kinds of casseroles and food and lunch there, and we're telling jokes, and we're laughing with them, and we're just, hey, how's your day? And they go, you guys are awesome. A different church used to do this, but they did it. Here you are. Oh man, we are just having a ball down there. And it infuses them with a sense of hope, actually. And last Monday, I saw two homeless guys that were leaning up against a truck the whole morning we were there, and they were watching us. And we were laughing and joking and having a good time, and people were getting shoes that had flip-flops, and people were getting socks that didn't have socks. And when we left, the one guy turned to me and goes, you are amazing. And I thought, what great gift we bring to lift them up, to lift their energy up. How that must infuse their day with hope. I just think it's wonderful, but that's what we do. We're not doing it because we feel better than them. We're doing it because they're souls, and hey, we got these shoes, and let's have a good time today. It's very special. Law of circulation. Law of circulation. So the interesting thing is the primary principles in this teaching, that your thoughts and your beliefs are like magnets and draw like to you and your experience, like relationships, like jobs, whatever, is on the internet everywhere. And you go on the internet and it tells you, what you believe you achieve, and give you all this advice about thinking about your perfect day. But what they forget about is the principle behind it. And that is, we are infused with the juice of God, with the love of God, with an energy in us that responds to us, with a universal intelligence that responds to us. So humanity is waking up. And yet Ernest Holmes, who wrote our textbook in 1938, here's what he wrote. In 1938, humanity is waking up to itself through self-discovery and self-realization. That's how excited he was at that time. But I'm glad to say in my life now that I'm starting to see it in so many areas. We're really starting to see it become mainline, part of the belief. But a lot of people don't know why. So what Sue and I have been working on, and I guess it is my passion, putting these things in spreadsheets, but we're amping up our curriculum, because there are aspects of this teaching that will work for you in whatever area of life you're in. Whether you're young, middle-aged, old, whether you're educated, not educated, whatever, whether you want to really use this teaching for good in your life, or whether you're just dabbling in it. Dabble till you prove it yourself, and then you'll want to dabble more. So we're going to offer a whole array of classes. There's probably going to be six people teaching, and we encourage you to come. Let us help you use what you already know inside you. Use that energy to connect with the source that created you. That's what it's all about. It's not about sending you our dogma. It's about opening up in you the energy that is going to circulate more in a greater way throughout life. One of the hardest things that we often have trouble with is trusting this process, trusting the universe. And think of bowling balls when you think about, well, I don't know if it really works. Well, wait, drop the bowling ball from your roof and see if it goes straight down. Trust it at that level, and you'll have a good time with it. If you're complaining about it, really think about what that's going to bring you. Don't don't like to draw complainers, but sometimes I do, just to help them see that that's not my experience. I don't have to complain about something. If I love it, it's going to shift and change in a better way than complaining. So we have an extraordinary time in this life to invest our time, our talent, and our treasure. And what I'm asking you to do is invest it in yourself. In yourself. Amp up that law of circulation. We invite you to do it here, like-minded people. But invest in yourself. Invest in understanding your true connection with God, listening to the word, listening to the voice, listening to the intuition. Invest in yourself this year. You know you're worthy of it because you're here. You're totally worthy of it. It's who you're meant to be. So let's close with a prayer about that. There is only one infinite intelligence that has created the whole universe, every person in it, every grain of sand, every leaf on every tree. And while all of this may look impermanent, there is behind it a permanence of every soul that will go from this life into another life experience. There are as many dimensions in the universe as there are grains of sand. And at some point we will have experienced them all. And maybe there'll be even more than that. So while we're here, we join together in enlivening ourselves, in opening up any area of limitation, whether it's work, creativity, joy, relationships, health, any area that is feeling in any way limited. It's time to open it up, to expand it, to help it grow. We do this with the support of the universe in every second of every day. So I accept for myself and everyone here the confidence, the trust to move forward with that, to learn how to be the master of our own mind, how to trust ourselves to know the best thing to do, to enjoy the rich energy and love of spirit. I am so grateful for this teaching. It has changed millions of lives for the better, and it changes all lives that hear the word of truth. So in that we say, thank you, Spirit, and so it is. Thank you.